We should. Welcome, everybody. You made it to the last day of Twin City Startup Week. Thank you so much for being with us this morning. Let me share my screen quick. So my name is Bailey Johnson, and I am the Event and Marketing Manager at Impact Hub Minneapolis-St. Paul. And if you aren't familiar with Impact Hub, we are a co-working space, community, and support system for social impact entrepreneurs. And we are part of one of the world's largest networks building entrepreneurial communities for impact. There's over 100 impact hubs in over 60 countries across the world. So really amazing community of entrepreneurs building impact. So it's no surprise that we believe that the future of business is social impact. So before we get started with the beef of our discussion, I just wanted to give a little bit of background on social impact and why we believe it is the future of business, just for those that may be new to the concept. So according to the Harvard Business School and this purpose study, 70% of employees say they wouldn't work for a company without a strong purpose. 78% of American consumers expect businesses to make a positive impact, and 86% of investors say companies should work for the benefit of all stakeholders. So it's really clear that in order to attract top talent, investors, and consumers, businesses need to be thinking about this. But what does that mean? So we like to say at Impact Hub and across the social impact space that businesses need to think beyond profits to a triple bottom line. So of course, profit is still important. You know, we need profits to make sustainable business, but social businesses go beyond that to think about people and the planet as well when they're making business decisions. But those are big terms: people, planet. So a great shared language and framework that we like to go by, especially at Impact Hub, is the Sustainable Development Goals. So these are a set of 17 goals set by the United Nations that are meant as a kind of collective call to action to all of us to work towards a more equitable, sustainable world. And so social businesses often use these SDGs as a way to talk about their impact, to set goals for themselves, and to really work towards things like reducing inequalities, climate action, gender equity. It's a really great way to be able to have a shared language and a set of collective goals for our impact as businesses. And social businesses are able to think innovatively, not only with maybe their specific mission as a business, but also as their policies and practices and systems behind the scenes. So we see that also in the way social businesses are set up. So the last thing I'll say is just, it's really exciting to see that there's lots of different ways to be a social business, whether you are within a large corporation and working to incorporate corporate social responsibility or environmental social governance to your corporation, or working within something, you know, like a nonprofit, but thinking differently to how can we add revenue stream to this nonprofit and make it really an enterprising nonprofit like we see with Global Minnesota and Minnesota Africans United, or being set up as a specific, maybe a benefit corporation, a B Corp, public benefit corporation, like we see with Civic Eco and Imagine Deliver, where you are committing to being a social business through your legal entity and how you report on your impact and talk. You're really talking the talk. And so it's just great to see that it's not that hard, right, to figure out ways to incorporate social impact into your business and really, you know, help change the future for us all. So hopefully that gave you a little bit of background, and I know our discussion with our amazing panelists today will convince you even more that social impact is the future of business. So I will stop sharing my screen and now pass it to Mark and the rest of our amazing panelists for discussion.
Thank you, Bailey, and welcome everyone who's joined us this morning or wherever you may happen to be. And thank you to Impact Hub and Bailey in particular for pulling us together for this crucial topic. I serve as president of Global Minnesota. And in my life and in my work, I've had the opportunity and the privilege to form a number of impact focused, value based businesses, Peace Coffee and others. But I've thought about the larger topic of how the consumers, the citizens, our neighbors, our visitors, how we share the importance of impact investment, impact philanthropy, impact business, impact life. I noticed that some of our students in some of our high schools are thinking about things like distraction free driving, but turning that into distraction free living. And I believe that we're giving ourselves new tools for thinking about how to make our lives meaningful and how to make our relationships in a collective way, creating a better Today, we'll have a discussion with this amazing panel. Dive into this a little bit more, but we always want to be raising the broader conversation of all of us engaging in these topics, helping each other have a greater impact, whatever that might be specifics in their lives. Our first panelist, ask her to introduce herself briefly, but Shawntera Hardy was someone I first met as our state of Minnesota Commissioner of Employment and Economic Development. She was already a successful entrepreneur, and she's just gone on from there. Turning the microphone over to you, Shawntera.
Good morning, Mark, and good morning, everyone. It's so wonderful to be here on this Friday of Twin Cities Startup Week. The last just couple of days have been spectacular. So top of my hat and kudos to the team and Shalise. This has been excellent with making sure that the week has been inclusive, but also actionable. So I'm delighted to be here, and I'm delighted to be here with Bailey, Kathy. I'm saying Kate and Catherine in my head all at the same time, and Basil, and really excited to be a part of this. As Mark said, I'm Shawntera Hardy, and in this hat, I get to be the co-founder and board advisor to Civic Ego, which is a data technology company building legislative tools to help organizations discover, track, and collaborate on public policy. And we do that by providing legislative tracking tools for organizations, nonprofit, for-profit, and everything in between to be able to know what policies are impacting them. So I'm excited for the conversation.
Welcome. Basil Ajuo is a executive director of Minnesota Africans United, an organization that he helped found and has grown as a connection point for Minnesota's diaspora, but with a real focus on connecting our community, our business community, our social community, our civic community here and in home countries. He and I have been partnering on a lot of direct Minnesota connections with Congo, with Kenya, with Zambia. And we've been working on the larger context of seeing how we boost overall our relationships, Minnesotans with other countries together. Both of us were together at the UN General Assembly with a big focus on sustainable development goals. We'll talk about that in a little bit. But it was fun for me watching Basil, knowing every head of state from Africa, all the foreign ministers, all the trade consultants. And if he didn't know them yet, it was about a 5-second connection because Basil brought the sort of energy of let's go, let's do business, let's make things happen. Basil, please introduce yourself. Welcome.
Thank you so much, Mark, and it's really, really good to get to know you, and working with you has been an honor. I'm happy again to see Shawntera. I think have had the opportunity to have some speaking engagement with her when I was serving as the trustee for the Minnesota State Colleges and Universities, and interacted with her a little bit when she was the commissioner. And it's also good to get to know Bailey, Kathy, and welcome you guys all. Basil Ajuo is my name. I am originally from the country of Cameroon, and I've been here in Minnesota for the past 10 years. I have been thinking about what are the rules of African diaspora here in Minnesota, not only here in Minnesota, but also in the whole United States of America, and what is the future of Africa as a whole. And we're beginning to see that the future of Africa is really means African diaspora living here in the United States of America. How do we help them build capacity, help them with mentoring, providing them with access to capital so that they can build wealth and economic prosperity, so they can be able to contribute to our economic development here in Minnesota and back also at the continent. I've been working in the past. I worked for Senator M.A. Klobuchar. I worked also in our education system. And I found my career that brought me happiness at Minnesota Africans United, where bringing Minnesota companies, African diaspora company back to the continent to build relationship in a two-way trade that brings prosperity, economic development, drive entrepreneurship, brings innovation, has been something that is so dear to my heart. And that's one of the reasons why building relationships with head of state in Africa and back here with our government, where business community all helps to shape our economic agenda altogether. I think I will leave it as this, and I will wait for next question.
Thank you, Basil. Kate, down in Khaled, has been helping people make their lives, their organizations, their businesses align with the impact that they want. And prior work, I know Kate in the Charities Review Council and Grassroots Solutions, some of the critical key central organizations making of the life of our civic culture here in Minnesota. Kate, thank you for joining us here today.
Happy to be here, Mark. Thank you so much for the gracious introduction, and feel very humbled to follow Shawntera and Basil's introductions. I'm Kate down in Khaled. I use she, her pronouns. I'm the founder and managing director of Imagine Deliver. We also have a software as a service platform called Mailroom. Our company delivers consulting work nationally and is based locally here in Minnesota. Last year, we were awarded a B Corp Best for the World award. So that means that out of all B Corps in the world, we're in like the top 3% for our social impact. So we take this really seriously. It's incredibly important to us. We are strongly aligned with the idea that the future of business is good for people, especially those who have been pushed to the margins, and it's good for our planet. So I'm really excited to be here today. A little bit about our work. We focus on large-scale system transformation work by centering on principles of targeted universalism. That means those who have been pushed to the margins or experience a variety of different intersections of oppression are the ones who are designing solutions to the problems they have firsthand. And they're doing that in collaboration with apex leaders who are ready to implement their solutions. We've seen lots of success. We almost closed in the pandemic, and then have grown by like 10x. So it's been, like any startup, a wild ride. We're thrilled to be here. I have a incredible team of folks who work for me and with me at Imagine Deliver. And I'm here to say that building a business that does good means reevaluating every single brick and block of your foundation. And that work is messy and magical. So I'm really excited to talk about that today.
Well, so today we're going to be talking about the messy, the magical, the near-death experience, the 10 acts of a kind of special moments, and we're going to be thinking about the future, because I think my experience, and we were briefly discussing before we started about this sort of new era where we are somewhat in person. We are anxious to get going. You know, we've had things put on the back burner or burners turned off. So I want to start the discussion with just the broad question about, is this in the context of a startup week? How do we help a true startup build its impact perspective from the beginning? Not maybe some of us, it was backed in down the way. What do you think is good advice for the true startup or the pre-startup that's watching us today? Don't scare them, but don't baby them.
Can I just ask a tactical question,
You want to
Mark?
start
How
with
do you want us to jump
messy
in?
or magic?
Do you want us to all just jump in together?
Jump in. Jump in.
Or how do you want us to take
You
turns?
jump. You jump.
Okay, I
You-
will. Okay. Oh, okay. I'll jump in. Start by building a network. You can't be what you can't see. And there are a lot of really incredible organizations who have tried things and taken risks. Some have failed, some have been successful. But it's really hard to start something brand new from the ground up alone. So I think it's really important to bring a team of friends and co-conspirators together to do that work really well. I think also using, I'll say one more thing before I'll let my colleagues share probably much more brilliant advice. There's a poem that a colleague of mine read at the beginning of the week, and I forget. I'll ask him who the author was, but it was about being like water and how water flows over any environment and is adaptable. And I think in this landscape where change is promised and constant, that's really good advice. We have to be really adaptable and willing to not pivot like the bros necessarily, but flow over our environment in ways that are malleable and not dogmatic and willing to learn, right? A growth mindset is really, really, really critical. And I wouldn't have gotten through the messy to get to any magic without like being willing to shift along the way. And I'll leave that for now and let my colleagues share.
Thank you.
Maybe I will just follow up on what Kathy just said. I think that's phenomenal. It just helped me remember how I got to start Minnesota Africans United. When we were starting Minnesota Africans United, we were really thinking of the kind of structure that we can put together that will really help work. The way it really started, we started really talking to employers, talking to African diaspora businesses in all kinds of business sectors, whether you're a micro business or you're a small business, or you have an idea in your head. We talk to people that have come to the United States well far ahead of me, that have been here for over 25, 30 years. Have they ever tried to create an African diaspora organization that brings together all the African individuals, businesses, organizations together to see how they could help with their aspirations and their dreams to be successful? And we'll talk to almost every economic development organization that is actually here in Minnesota, whether it's CDFI organization, whether they are banks, whether they are non-profit or groups that were actually serving the African diaspora groups. We really wanted to see the challenges, wanted to see the successes, wanted to see how what we can really learn. And then we decided to go with let's start up with starting a structure as a 501c charity organization. And the reason why we wanted to see that was because we got to listen to many groups. Then at the time at North Hennepin Community College, we were meeting almost every month. For 4 good years, we were never incorporated. We were never registered with the state, but we were just having this monthly conversation that brings together all African leaders today. Tomorrow we bring people in the education sector. And we were so happy that North Hennepin Community College offered us that space to have this kind of conversation. That actually led us to the incorporation. And what we learned at that particular time was that African small business owners, the African business owners that they were actually here, have good ideas in really starting up small businesses, but they do not actually know what were the social impact of all these kind of businesses that they were all both starting up. They were having challenges, also having capital. They were having challenges building wealth and helping to pass this wealth to the next generation. Now we say, why don't we structure our organization in a way as a nonprofit that really helps these African small business owners able to have access to capital, have opportunity for mentorship, and opportunity for them building wealth and actually creating jobs. And one of the fundamental things that we got to learn is that many of them who were started were recruiting people that could not have been recruited in our mainstream system here in Minnesota, and really helping create an impact in the community, something that they never really had this idea in their head. But at the end of the day, now they know that it's not only looking at getting this money or mentorship, what is their economic contribution to the prosperity of the state of Minnesota. And that is where we are, and that is what we have been doing, and that is what we really intend to continue helping businesses to really decide whether you are here to create profit or you are here to provide what kind of services, because these are the kind of services that actually makes a difference to the African diaspora community. And I think I should just leave it at that, and then maybe hear from one of the panelists.
I would, to your question, and I appreciate the comments thus far. The biggest thing that I would say for a emerging entrepreneur is to understand that culture starts with you. So if you messy or magical, that is the culture that you're going to build. And so taking the time to understand your compass, why are you doing this? Your values, because they will be infused in the infrastructure that you build as an organization. That will lead the way as the type of folks who will attract to your team, the type of customers that will come to you. You are the culture. And so looking around to see how you build something, if you don't start with yourself and your motivation and the mindset, as Kate said, around just a growth mindset, knowing that at each phase of your company, the culture of your company is going to shift, but the foundation is going to start with a culture that you create. And so if I can't stress enough to understand that it starts with you. You can't look outside to try to figure out what type of company I'm going to create. You can pretend to be a certain type of leader, but it'll catch up with you. Like, being authentic is exhausting because you got to remember who you was. And so how do you make sure that your North Star of who you are, that you embed that in the type of company that you want to run? Because that is going to show up sooner or later. Folks are going to see it in your products and services and how you show up in spaces to represent your company. Yes, as you bring in more people, it will grow, because I always say it's not about looking for a culture fit, it's looking for a culture add. And that matters to scaling and growing a company. But remember that it starts with you. And I believe that, as myself and my co-founders at Civic Eagle have been on this journey for a number of years building on our company, that's something that we hold true, is that, you know, we are unique of having multiple founders. And so you get a prism of culture and who we are and our lived and learned experiences as being US born African Americans and Nigerian born Africans. And so we have a mixture of our culture based on our lived and learned and our values. But we started there and we understood that. And that has to show up in how it shows up in how we run our company, and it shows up in our culture. But it all starts with you. I can't stress that enough. And so look in the mirror, ask yourself, what type of company am I trying to build? And as we're talking about here today, you decide on your bottom line. If it's people, profit, or planet, or all of the above, that's your decision to figure that out. But it all starts with you.
Mark, you're muted.
Thank you. I'm just wondering, in listening and focusing on the elements of this, is commitment to wanting the business, the enterprise, to have an impact in the community and wider, a unifying thing for different cultures and different perspectives? Is it core, like having a successful business equals a bottom line that works, impact in the community?
I'll jump in. I'd say it depends. You know, again, as I said, it starts with you. Sometimes we have some amazing founders that are introverts, and getting out there may be hard. And so that oftentimes plays into how much you see folks out there and building that community. But it's you want to delight your clients and your customers. And in order to do that, you have to meet them where they are. And in order to do that, you have to meet them. And so making sure that you have built, you know, strong relationships in whatever the communities, and I always say T's, because within community, there's communities of communities. And so let's not think that in each geographic or culture dimension that there's a monolith. And so it really just depends. And also, if you're emerging, you may come with a whole repertoire from your past life that you can lean on, that gives you the credibility of your connection in the communities that you have been a part of. And so it just really depends on the type of product and service that you're building. It really depends on just how you have shown up prior to, you know, hitting a green light on this company as to what community means to you and what it will mean to the success of your business. I mean, I've seen companies start with no product or service with just a tremendous backing of communities, and you're like, that's so awesome. You get all hype and you're like, oh, where can I buy it? Oh, we haven't built it yet. You're like, what in the world? That's amazing. That's real star power, that you have built the trust of humans that support the work that you're doing. And so it just honestly depends. And some may come later, because depending on, you may have gotten comfortable with being out there more, or you bring on team members that's their jam, that they like to be out there and be the ambassador. And so it really just depends.
And so, Bailey, you at Impact Hub think about a space that helps people connect, interact, and you think about events like this panel. You want to weigh in on the different ways that we can help each other in our introvertness, extrovertness, and our connection points?
I love that question. I do think that having a space, a physical space or virtual space, where you can go with questions is so key. So, like Kate said before, people have built things already and have gone through things and have tried and failed and tried and failed. And the way that you can feel not so alone as an entrepreneur is by getting to know those people. And maybe they're building something somewhat different, or, you know, it's a totally different mission, but they still care deeply about building something with purpose. And they can, by surrounding yourself with those like-minded people, it can really give you the push and boost that you need. And, you know, I feel like I'm an introvert, but I am so comfortable in a space like Impact Hub because it meets you where you're at, no matter what stage of your journey you are or what kind of personality you have. There are so many different ways to plug in. So, and there's so many support systems in our ecosystem out there. So finding them is really key.
So all of you have done startups, one or many, but you've also done that successfully. So there's scaling up. So some people watching are pre-startup, some are like just of it, but there's plenty of people watching who been around. I can see my little chats. What's your advice about the startup that then is anticipating success, scaling, if that's in that? What are some of those things to make that journey probable for more success in that scaling part? Kate.
I can jump in. Yeah, I'd be happy to jump in. I've been thinking a lot about this as headlines go across the news about, you know, white male founders getting a huge influx of capital with, you know, broken trust across their communities, and still, you know, the privilege of being able to access capital to move a non-proven product in the market to scale really quickly. And when I think about that, I think about the future of startup growth and how that looks fundamentally different across the intersections of gender, race, and other identities. Oftentimes you think that growing a business has to look like a hockey stick, right? You like start out slow and then you move really fast towards that upper right-hand quadrant of growth, and success isn't success until you're in the seven figures. That hasn't been our experience at Imagine Deliver. And while we have grown and have scaled our impact and our team, it's been, you know, since 2016, and people are just now starting to see the dream that I had at that time become realized at a national scale. And before that, there was a lot of proving ourselves in small spaces, and it was not glamorous. It was not, there was no glory in it. And now we are, you know, moving out of the space of proving ourselves to being able to make a bigger change and grow a company that is really sustainable with a foundation of justice for our team members. And that takes a different type of intentionality now, and a different type of investment in our people, right? We aren't, startups tend to have a huge hierarchy that looks like, you know, like a huge pyramid of investment, like really lots of really low paid people, and then a CEO that's paid a whole lot. What we do is much different than that, and that means that we have to invest in each person very differently, and that keeps us in some ways from being able to achieve that hockey stick faster stronger, but by valuing our people, actually we've been able to see more success and grow more. So I think we have to fundamentally reevaluate what scale looks and feels like, and in order to tell a story that's more relatable for most of us. So for me, I now have 2 businesses, one that's just gaining traction in the market, another one that we're seeing really explode in lots of different places and spaces. And none of it has been glamorous, and we're all bootstrapped. We haven't taken, a single dollar of VC funding. So this is just that's my lesson learned. But I don't feel the pressure of needing it to look a certain way or have a certain timeline in order for it to be valuable.
Yeah, I think, Mark, I may jump in. I think one of the advice or suggestions and recommendations based on my personal experience as the Chief Executive Officer for Minnesota Africans United that have been involved in training more than 25 entrepreneurs over a 10-week sessions of these small African diaspora businesses in Minnesota, 4 of which have already created jobs already, and then have added so much amount of money already into the Minnesota economy. My experiences that I've come to learn with the African diaspora businesses during our training has been the loneliness of the starting phase of many of these business leaders that are thinking to start new ventures, new businesses. They have everything well figured out in their heads, in their minds, in their souls, in their hearts. And they have their business plans well written, but not on a piece of paper, but it's written somewhere in their heads. So, and really helping them, connect them with experienced mentors, like using our relationship with SCORE or with Bremer Bank, or with the partners that we have. We have also trained other mentors within the African diaspora business community. They themselves have become mentors, helping them setting up, at the end of every 6 months, we get together, meet one-on-one, or meet as a group, individual to business to business, or business to government, really getting them tap on some of these technical skills from the experiences of people that have gone ahead of them, have had the experience that can really, really help them being successful. So this is just to make them know that in starting a business, relationship is really, really one of the big things that you have to get to know. You have to get to understand the market, whether you are selling to a business or your customers are individuals or is the government, who your consumers are in the economy. But whatever the case, we are also thinking of all the resources that we have in the community, like Impact Hub, that are there. Maybe you have mentors, or who are the other community development organizations that have mentorship. We refer them to these mentors or to these centers that can help them navigate. At the same time, we're also trying to look at how do they access money? How can they have capital? How can they become transformative? I mean, the overall goal is really making them understand the new American system, because they came from a different system. If you don't understand the American system, by creating your own system, building relationship, understanding from other people, it's really, really very hard for you to really be successful in a business. Holding hands, networking, relationship building, following up to meetings, and really believing again in yourself, like Shawntera actually says, that it is something that I really want to do. Some of them is easy to do. Yes, I can do it. But we also want to know that it's easier to do it when you put your heart and soul to say, I want to do it. Maybe this is not the right moment of time. You can stay back and wait for the idea to mature, to grow, but make sure that you have relationships, you have the mentors, you have maybe some seed money or family or friend or someone can help you navigate that. It's a lonely process. Go out there, hold hands, build relationships. It's one of the bigger
Thank you.
Advice.
Thank you, Basil.
Can I jump in on this
Please.
one? So I have to say that Kate and I smiled when you said it'd be lonely up here when you're starting to grind out. And so that is true. When some of those dark days are sometimes pitch black. Just two things I would offer that connects to both of your comments, just to align with my experience, is understand that not all capital is the same. And so you need to have a philosophy around what money you want to access. I had an amazing conversation yesterday with Catherine Finney from the Genius Guild. And one thing that she said is that capital, some is more expensive than other. Venture capital money is more expensive than a traditional bank. And that expense comes from what it is that they want from you, either your equity, how it wants you to show up as a leader, how long it wants you to show up in terms of the return. You need to understand that. So no matter where you are on the scaling journey, if you haven't taken the time for your company to figure out its scale philosophy related to capital, stop right now and do it. You know, for Civic Ego, we were intentional around the timing and how we would bootstrap. We were intentional of how we would become educated on the venture capital space before we jumped into it. And we were also intentional about who we wanted to be on our cap table. Not everybody I want to live with for the rest of my life. And so there was an integrity piece and around the type of humans that we wanted to do business with. And so we took that ownership of being very clear around the type of people that we wanted to build our company with. And that's what venture and other types of private equity and other types of dollars require you to do. Because you can look up and you get the wrong people at the dinner table and you might not have a seat because they've created an environment where you lose the level of ownership and authority in your company. So understand all the different capital options out there, grants and loans and debt and equity. Make sure you reach out to organizations like you know, Mina and the program that Basil just reviewed for you all. Make sure you're reaching out to those technical resources for you to understand what capital is. The last thing I'll say, Mark, that is for those that are on the cusp of scaling or have excelled really fast, as Kate mentioned, with respect to Imagine Delivery, if I can't stress enough, get your back office in order. Make sure that you have access to legal help. Make sure you have access to an accounting, even if they can't be on full time, that they teach you how to use your own QuickBooks. Make sure that you understand if you're going to start hiring that you need to know human resource policies because you become accountable to the employment environment for those humans that you're hiring. That becomes your responsibility. If you don't think about your back office as you're growing, you'll look up and you may have the best product and service and your team is miserable because you haven't created an environment for it to win. And then also you might put yourself in a situation where because your back office is in order, you can't receive the finances and other funding because you don't have the documentation, you don't have access to the resources to be able to help you take your business to the next level. So 2, understand the capital, have your philosophy around it, and make sure that you, at every step of the way, prepare yourself for a strong back office infrastructure.
Well, so this last week has been curious because some people have begun to really pummel companies, especially big companies, that they shouldn't be considering the environment, social questions, and governance. I don't know all of the thoughts, but I thought it's interesting that we're pretty committed to impact and wanting our lives, our work, our businesses to then have a positive impact. There are some voices in powerful places, legislators in particular, who make noise about, oh, don't do that. And there's some governors who said, we're going to throw you out of our state if you support women's rights or whatever. So is there a crystal ball that you've got that could help us look into the future and describe how impact investment, impact philanthropy now could protect the larger perspective, that doing right by each other in the world is why we're on this planet. Any thoughts on protecting ourselves from these other
Yeah.
forces?
Can I jump in?
Please.
It is fascinating to me that folks have compartmentalized the profit making machine and the planet. Like I'm trying to understand how we're like, do these folks go to work and they get off and go to a secret planet? Like, I don't really understand how there's a separation. And we saw that during one of the most difficult times here in Minnesota, related to after the murder of George Floyd, that corporations were looking around and wondering why what was happening in the block came to their boardroom, because the issue of inclusion is in totality, because those people are community, and community are your people. I don't care if they're executive vice presidents, they live in a community that may be impacted. And so related to things such as clean air and clean water, I'm pretty sure there are executives that live in Mississippi. I don't understand. I think they want clean water too. And so for me, I don't understand. I don't have an answer, because I don't even understand how there is a problem that you would separate the social responsibility of seeing yourself as a part of ensuring that when you walk out the doors, virtual or physical, of your company, that you have a responsibility to ensure that the built environment can sustain the people and their needs, from across the board, food and everything else. I don't understand. There's no ask for you to do it all. It's an ask for you to play your part. And it's an ask for you to be a responsible partner to make sure you're not contributing to the demise of the built environment. And so for me, it's purely political, because it's not common sense. And this is the place where common sense is not equaling common practice,
Right.
because it's not making sense to me. And so until someone give me the answer to where I can find this secret planet that when they clock out at 5 that they go to, that is beautiful and pristine, and they don't have to worry about where they do their work, I don't really have an answer for you, Mark. I don't know.
I'll add on. I think what Shawntera said is really brilliant. And I'll take a stab at maybe some of the psychology behind it, right? Racialized capitalism is the standard of care for corporations here in the United States, right? This nation was built after colonization on the backs of Black people and the invisible labor of women. Right. And that standard of care for corporations has become the foundational expectation of what we can get away with in our country collectively for how we expect people to show up and go to work. And when we subvert that, the idea that business can do good, we call to question the foundation of our corporate infrastructure in a number of ways. And that's dangerous for the current state of wealth here. And it's also essential because not only is it bad for the planet, it's also no longer acceptable to the worker, to labor here. And this is why we're seeing our labor shortage. So I actually think that in many ways, some of the glimmers that we see in social business are the answer to a more sustainable future where people actually are participatory in their work lives in a different way. But I do think Shawntera laid the foundation and said it even better. So I think I don't have a crystal ball, but I think if we are to look even a little bit into the future, employers are starting to have to reimagine their practices or love their racism and hate for the planet so much that they go out of business eventually, right? Because we have to be able to bring people to work, and we have to be able to have a product to sell if we're making widgets, right? So we need that world, the future world, whether it's Mars or here, but I would prefer that it is here.
And if Mark, you have a stash of crystal balls, you know where I am, so send them our way.
Any other thoughts, Basil? Or
not any thought at this.
They go on sale. I think I'm getting the big feedback loop. You guys keep going.
You know, one thing I wanted to just insert in this conversation, which when asked to be a part of this, the title has been on my mind around kind of the future of business. And one of the things that, you know, as I've like tried to figure out, well, how do we strategize around the fact that we are now in this next revolution, and what are the components? And so for my brain, it's been like, okay, so we have this future of work, which, you know, is in this space of you know, automation and algorithms and tech. Tech is in all, and this whole place around kind of this future of work. And then we have this, what we have seen over the last 2 years around the future of the workplace, and thinking about like it being hybrid and remote, or, you know, driving to figure out how there's this space of belonging, but also impact and inclusion. And then lastly, kind of the future of the workplace related to what Kate was saying around just true inclusion and making sure that you think about that. And so I'm actually interested from you all, like, you know, how have you as a business owner, like, been able to think about those are my made up 3 buckets. You may have more or disagree. Like, how have you been able to like either assist folks in the work that you all do at the nonprofit, or Kate, in terms of your clients? Like, I'm very interested in that.
I think I can jump it right now. When I was invited to I was trying to also look at, we really have some tremendous successes as a non-profit, but at the same time, we have had our own share of struggles and learning from opportunities. And we are now looking at the 20 years plan. Where is it that Minnesota Africans United is going to be in 20 years time to come today? Where the businesses that we currently are helping, where are they actually going to be in 20 years time? So while we are thinking about ourselves, we are also thinking about the small businesses that we're also supporting. And where we are coming to see that there are many going to be some kind of endless opportunity as far as capital is really concerned. And we believe that people that are open-minded to that opportunity should also be open-minded about having to serve a particular market. Because we are, like what you just said, we are saying that those opportunities are going to come from a combination of 2 factors, one of which is, number one, technology is going to have a very big role. Number 2, humanity. But from what we have actually learned from the effect of COVID, from the effect of the experience of using all kinds of technology at this point in time, whether it's Zoom they were using, whether it's fintech they were using, whether telemedicine that we're helping, that money, what kind of things. Technology is really going to drive most part of our work, whether it's in social media, whether in manufacturing, whether it's trying to use some particular coding for small businesses to start understanding the value of investment into versus returns on their investment. They really need to start looking at training and getting the kind of skills that they need, because they will need these particular skills. Just going back into your point, Shawntera, you know, what are the kind of technologies they'll be using in human resources? We know that it will be technology. Whether it's capital or be technology, everything is technology is going to come at this particular point in time. As we begin to look far ahead, we are also looking at how is the world changing and how do we also change along with the world in a way that really fits and support our business owner to have endless opportunity to capital.
We're into the last few minutes. Bailey, do you want to bring us all with maybe some final comments from everyone?
Yeah, definitely. Sorry, your sound's being a little iffy, but I'm happy to jump in and just ask our panelists for, any final thoughts you want to share with our attendees today, and maybe any hopes for your own business for the future.
Let me just jump again. I think the last hope that I really want to share is that when we look at businesses, we are only thinking at large businesses. We are forgetting to look at micro businesses or small businesses. We want to look at many of our small businesses that we have here in the state are really the backbone of our community, and that we should start looking how our businesses can, at this particular point in time, can actually shape the world, and also creating your own system, because it is from your own system that you create that maybe a bank or some kind of grant or government or policy or whatever kind of thing that can actually be able to see how your system has expanded to a more bigger system in a way that creates policy, and also in a way that attract investment, either from whether it's venture capital, whether from a grant or from a loan or from the government, to help you contribute to a larger system. So we should all be socially conscious about why and what are the reasons why we are starting small businesses at this point in time.
I'll go next. I think the future of business, and I like the buckets that you came up with, Shawntera, has a lot to do with the skills that are going to be needed for what comes next in the world. So when I think about the future of business, it also, to me, is very related to the future of work. So interdependence, adaptability, creativity, collaboration. Those are all going to be really essential characteristics about the future of business, and social business especially. And if we're going to do work that makes money, feeds our families, cares for our numerous communities, and also is participatory, especially as it relates to like growing big and doing enormous things, we have to think beyond what has been and imagine like new futures. So I think for me, they are just different, like the buckets that you talked about are different levels of the same sort of need for forward momentum. And I think that if we do not like take heed of our the people in our midst, we think purely about like the movement of capital, we're in a pretty desolate place collectively. So it's now a necessary, like answering this question is now necessary for everyone, not just those who are interested in it.
I just will echo everything that you two said. I won't do anything but double click and just end with saying that we are who we're looking for. We are the future. And so where are you going to take responsibility if you're building a business on your own outside, or if you're doing some entrepreneurship inside of an organization? Be a part of leading that future and owning that future, because we're going to need us, because we are under attack everywhere. And if we do not figure out how we come together to be able to build communities that matter, it's going to be just a fast downward spiral. So we are who we're looking for. We are the future, and so let's make sure that we can roll up our sleeves and build spectacular organizations together.
Thank you, everybody. Right on time. And thank you again, Bailey, for pulling us all together.
Thanks, everybody. Enjoy the rest of your day. Happy Friday.
Thank you so much for having us.
Thank you.
Bye.